Okay, so this is our first talk for today, everyone. If you want to come and sit down here and see us in a little bit closer, if you want to, it's up to you. Oh, you've got the hot seats up there, so you're all good. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Matt Biggs, everyone.
Oh, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. It's great to be here. Whoa, excellent. Excellent. I've been really looking forward to this, actually, Lee. It's very exciting because I came down to do one of your podcasts and also one of your Facebook broadcasts a while back, and I thought you just got great ideas, great bunch of mates. I'm in. So I was desperate to be asked, and I'm here. So happy boy.
Keep dragging you back to Colchester, mate, don't
Yeah.
we?
I'd never been before, actually. I'd never been to Colchester. I'd seen it on the map, and now it's like twice in a year.
It's a beautiful place. We're going to record this as well for our podcast. If you want to listen to this later on for a podcast, you can as well. And we're also streaming live on Facebook, which is really good, Matt.
Excellent.
You streamed live on Facebook before?
No, I haven't, but greetings, everybody. Good to see you.
Right, so let's talk about gardening and and gardening, which is what we're all here for.
Well, can I just say, actually, I've just, I arrived about half an hour ago, and I've already spent most of my money. There's a chat to a lady and gentleman who are keeping bees. That's absolutely great because we need the bees need the flowers, and it's all good. So I was chatting bees, and you realise how important the bees are. I think we've suddenly become aware of the importance of them. But also, the lady was saying that her little lad was interested in bees. So again, you're bringing the children up to be aware of the importance of the environment and to look around them and to enjoy what's there. And so when I looked at the honey, it's that lovely sort of clear honey. I looked at that, I thought, great, so we'll buy some of that. But no, it was just really good to think that they're urban beekeepers. There are gardeners within Colchester, within the urban area, and lots of people are benefiting. The people who garden, because gardening's so good for you, it's good for the soul, you really enjoy it, gives you a chance to wind down and to relax. And you've probably seen, actually, Lee, that there's a lot of medical evidence at the moment coming forward that gardening is good for you. Well, if they'd have asked gardeners, we would have told you that, without any specific research. But isn't it amazing that people are wanting to, get away from the cities, or even in the cities, they want to reconnect with the countryside that they came from, and get back to the earth that belongs to them and they belong to it. So I just think horticulture at the moment is on a roll, and rightly so.
It's becoming like more fashionable.
Yeah, it has become fashionable, and that's really, really great. I mean, the Perrywood Garden Centre as well, they're here, and we were talking air plants, and so many people are sort of discovering house plants. They're trendy, and they're trendy because people are living in flats, they're living in apartments, they perhaps don't have a lot of time to go out and garden or keep an allotment. So what do? You have some house plants, and it's very easy to get hooked on house plants. But I would caution you and say, don't have too many. It's better just to have 3 or 4 or as many as you can look after and care for, rather than having loads and loads of them. I mean, if you want to devote your life to them, go ahead. But there's nothing worse, I think, than seeing an unhappy plant. Yeah. So just get as many as you can keep. And we bought tillandsias, the air plants. They don't need a vast amount of maintenance, and they are the kind of plant, like the cacti and the succulents, that have become really popular, that if you forget or if life takes over, because of the family, because of work, and you have to do overtime, then those plants will sit and wait for you until you're ready. Don't forget them, but they're prepared and able to wait and don't take a lot of care. So the idea of growing, the air plants, which come from the rainforests, and they can cope with these periods of dry because they're living on the trees. They're not taking nutrients from them. They just sit and perch on the trees in all wonderful shapes and sizes. And when they flower, the colours are extraordinary. There's sort of pinks and cerise and blues and all sorts of weird and wacky colours that you wouldn't normally associate with nature. You can be growing these extravagant and extraordinary plants at home.
It's one of the things when people say, "Oh, I've not got a garden to garden." Those are the accessible things you can get to.
Well, I think it's absolutely fantastic. People say, "I haven't got a garden." You don't need a garden. You don't need a lot of house plants. You don't need a lot of space. But everybody's got room for some. And if you start looking, round your house in the different locations, they do take the softness away from the angular nature of the house itself and the rooms. I don't know about you, but if you see a new housing estate, all the houses look naked.
Yeah.
They look bare, and you can see those sharp angles. And you go, now get some clothes on, and that means plants sort of up the front to dress them. And as soon as you start to put the plants up the front and create yourself a garden, then the whole thing starts. You start to relax a bit and start to feel, okay, yeah, that's better. I feel more comfortable in this space. And again, it's this sort of deep within our psyche, I think. There are plants and there is countryside. And I always feel sorry for the Victorians who were, when the Industrial Revolution took place, they were taken, from the towns and the little villages that they'd lived in, the rural existence that they'd had, and moved into work in factories. And that was the beginning, really, of the kind of totally artificial lifestyle that so many people have today, like offices and the like. But if you bring plants into it, then suddenly it's better all round. It's a sigh of relief, I think, when you bring plants into an area that's not got them.
I really enjoy growing veg on the windowsills and stuff like that. That's my thing. Like, what's your thing that you love growing the most?
I'm one of those people who can't concentrate on things for a long period of time. Okay, so I've got loads of bits of stuff growing everywhere. So I've got to have a bit of a thing about bulbs for a while, and then I'll move on and grow vegetables, and then I'll go ornamental plants. I like rare and unusual plants, but I do love plants with stories. I love the stories of the plant hunters. But growing the vegetables on the windowsill, the cut and come again salads, which are absolutely lovely. Your tomatoes, your chilies. Anybody can do this. It's not difficult. People didn't go to horticultural college years and years ago. They learned from their parents and their grandparents, or they approached it the other way. Like the lady and the gentleman with the beekeeping. They just said, well, we'll have a go. We'll invest a few quid in this. They did their sums, worked it out, and thought, we'll have a go. And you learn as you go along.
Yeah.
Or you go to get yourself an allotment, and if you get yourself an allotment, you've got loads and loads of advice. Or you listen to the gardening question show on BBC Radio Essex, or Gardener's Question Time, or you find people who will help you.
Yep.
And the lovely thing about gardeners is that they love what they're doing so much, is they want to share it. It's almost like they're brimming over with enthusiasm for what they do. And so if somebody says, oh, excuse me, and I've got a problem with these little white flies on my aubergines or something, they'll go, oh yeah, no, there's no problem, you've got white fly, and they'll tell you how to control it and calm you down, so you'll get your sort of so it's like going to the doctor. They'll say, don't worry, I'm a plant doctor, I can help you. It's not a problem that cannot be resolved. So we're all sharing and we're all growing together. And I do believe that in the world, there's so many different. Every culture is growing vegetables because we need them to survive. One thing that amazes me too is that all these celebrity chefs and what have you are only celebrity chefs because of the food that comes from the ground. So even the Queen eats carrots. Might be 24 carat, but she's eating carrots and she's eating potatoes from the field. And the dishes that are made by these celebrity chefs and that feed royalty and presidents are the same vegetables, presented in a different way to the ones that we eat. But going back to what I was just saying was that I believe there's, I don't know how many nations there are in the world. Let's say there's 345 different nations. There's a lot. But there's also, you need to add one to make it 346, because there's the nation of gardeners. And that nation of gardeners is completely different to everybody else, because we grow together, we garden together, we help one another, we introduce new varieties to one another.
Yep.
And of course, when you're out gardening, you need clothes. And I wanted to mention your friend who's got a really lovely rack of vintage clothes there as well. Some really nice clothes to wear. And when you're gardening, you want to feel comfortable. You don't want tight.
Oh, mate, I've made a career out of these tight things.
But you're on show today. You're on show. But, you want something that's relaxed and comfortable and airy, and it's wearing the right clothes. So don't wear things that, constrain you. Make sure you keep yourself warm in winter. You find that with gardening in winter, you soon do get warm. Or if it's a really cold day, you perhaps, have treated yourself to a greenhouse and can go in there. I think the most important thing is keeping yourself dry and making sure that when you bend down, you don't get a draft on your back. An old gardener who I worked with for years, he was always on about, He'd see us as youngsters when we were gardening on the parks in Leicester, and we'd be down there. He'd just go, "Oh, you don't give a monkeys about anything, do you?" So you're down there, and he'd go, "Ooh, you know, you're back. You'll worry about, you might not worry about it now, but in 30 years' time, you know, you'll have a bad back. So you've got to look after. You look after
I'll be
yourself."
all right, mate.
I don't know. In fact, I don't know one gardener who hasn't got a bad back. I think it goes with the gig, doesn't it? Really, it goes with the gig. That's because we don't bend properly.
That's one of the reasons I got Best Days Vintage here, because when it's fashionable now to look good, like the Instagram world. It's all about how your plants look, how you look and doing it.
It's so interesting because, again, it shows the adaptability to me of plants, because I'm an old fart and I've been around for ages, and I didn't, I went through heavy metal, which, was different. Then I went through punk, and then sort of mellowed a bit and sort of got through to the, to the 90s and the rave and what have you. And now I've got to the stage where, I've got to the stage where I've got 3 children. So, we always laugh, my wife and I, because the children are all smartly dressed, and we come out in like old jackets and stuff that we bought from.
I've always liked your shirts. Yeah, mate. I've always liked them.
Do you like this one? Actually,
always.
You have not seen this. The first time it's come out.
Wow, exclusive.
Exclusive. But I think the nice thing is that it doesn't matter. If you want to garden and be trendy with the gardening, you can still garden, and it's the gardening that's the fundamental, and the plants will respond. If you want to become sort of uber trendy, and you garden in an apartment, and you want to create terrariums with your air plants, or with your little clusters and displays of cacti or succulents or whatever it may be, you can still do that, and you can take your idea of style into your world of plants, because a lot of the plants that you grow indoors are sort of architectural. They are there for their shape and their colour, and to make a very strong architectural impact. Well, if you're sort of cool and trendy, and you're sharp, and you've got a sharp haircut,
sure, thanks, mate. Thanks for noticing.
You go with the plants. It's almost, if you go to an architect's house, it will be the interior will be furnished in a certain way, because they are into architecture and into shapes and forms. And of course, if you're growing house plants and you're into shapes and forms and big leaves and angles or whatever it may be, particularly if you've got a contemporary style, those plants are perfect, absolutely perfect for this sort of this minimalism that people quite like, to make a statement.
Mm-hmm.
There's ways you can make a statement. You make a statement with colour. You can make a statement with minimalism, the way you dress, or you can be flamboyant. You see sort of wonderful elderly ladies, don't you, with sort of incredible sort of hats on, and a pink stole, and and you can make an impact that way and sort of establish your identity. And I think a lot of people are wanting to establish their identity, particularly, like you say, and that's all changed because of social media.
Yeah.
Because people see you and they see your space, whereas you used to wander around quite anonymously, really. It's fascinating how it's changed the world.
For like houseplants, what's your top tips for houseplants to look after them? Because I am really good at looking after cactuses.
Yeah.
I'm going to start looking after air plants because they look pretty easy.
Yeah.
Houseplants, I am not so good at.
Well, I think the one thing is to make sure that, what most, they all vary. And I would say that if you were starting off with houseplants, go for the cacti and the succulents and the air plants. The cacti and succulents, all they actually need is bright light. Then they'll take direct sunshine. If you're growing anything on a windowsill, then turn it about a quarter of a turn, sort of every week or so, just so that you get balanced growth. You have to make sure that you keep them watered in the summertime, and allow this compost surface, in fact, indeed the whole volume of compost, to dry out. So they'll go into a gritty compost. So allow that to dry out before re-watering. But you do need to water them during the growing period. You can't just buy them and neglect them. They do need watering. During the winter time, they're better to go into a cool place, about 17 or 18. Keep them cool, but then keep them drier, because they will cope with low temperatures, but they won't cope with being waterlogged at the same time. In the deserts where they come from, particularly the high altitude deserts, sort of like Atacama Desert, or if you go out to the Sonoran Desert in California, or the Mojave Desert, those desert areas, they do get extremely cold at night, as you know. Mm-hmm. So they can take cold, but what they don't like is the dampness. And if you give them a cool winter rest, they're more likely to flower. To get them to flower, they reach a stage of maturity, but you can also feed them with high potash fertilizer, which is tomato fertilizer, and that will get them to flower once they've got to that stage. The air plants, well, you can see from the display, people will often stick them onto pieces of timber, so or some driftwood or something like that, so that they bring that sort of character. Again, it's minimalist styling. One thing I wanted to do, I've never done it, and now it's too late. But when we had our little girl Jessica, I thought, why don't I? I've had loads of good ideas and always done nothing about them. But I thought, why don't I get a hanger, like a wire hanger, and then you could get pieces of fishing line or nylon strands of various lengths, and then you could get one of those little pieces of bark and attach that to the end. Again, various sizes, but enough to weight it, and then just have an air plant mobile. So you'd have about 4 or 5 different heights. And if the weight of the air plant was not great enough for it to hang, which the chances are it wouldn't be, you could then just tie another piece of nylon strand below it with a weight of some kind. And I had in my mind that these perhaps a little coloured piece of glass or something, so that they would go round, and then they would cut the tillandsias would become a mobile. And perhaps the little pieces of glass might catch the light. Never happened, so if anybody likes to have a go, let me know, see whether it works or not. But
sounds like a YouTube video right there, mate.
Yeah, well, it's something perhaps you ought to have a go at, because it's. I believed in my mind that it would work. Somebody will probably come to me now and goes, well, actually, Matt, you've got a fundamental problem with that, and this is why it won't work. But your air plants, again, they cope with the dry. If you grow them, a lot of them, as we mentioned, live on trees but don't take nutrients from them. They're what's called epiphytes. A lot of the orchids are as well. So if you grow the orchids, they grow those long silvery roots because they're sitting on the trees. And the tillandsias will grow along the branches in the organic matter that collects as they're in a rainforest or in a seasonally dry rainforest, and they will just sit there, and they can cope with the dry as well.
Yep.
And those, you just miss them. They don't have a highly developed root system generally, and so you just miss them.
Sounds really easy.
And keep them going. And again, they don't need a lot of feed. I feed mine. Well, to be honest with you, I feed the ones I've got in my greenhouse when I remember. They don't need that much, but they do like the humidity. And you water. A lot of them are urn plants, and you water in the little section in the centre, so you don't tend to water around the roots, though it's worth doing that as well, but the main concentration is in the little swimming pool. So in the rainforest, all the rain comes down, and they've got, a lot of them have got gutter shaped leaves, so it all goes down into the centre and fills the pond in the centre. Right. So that's where you water. So I'll either mist mine, give them a little bit of water, rainwater preferably, and it's about a third strength high potash fertilizer, but they're absolutely great. And of course, with a lot of your house plants, if you acclimatise them, you can put them outdoors. If you've got in the summer, I haven't done that yet this year, strangely enough, but quite often you've been able to make some really nice little displays in a corner with your house plants, because I think they appreciate the fact that they can go out and just have a summer holiday, away from the artificiality of the house. Other big lush leafy plants, like your cheese plants and the devil's ivy and the like, they can go again, they will take low light levels. One of the great ones is one called Chinese leaf, Aglaonema, which you can get. They have sort of spear-like leaves with, again, get variations on the variegations on them. They cope with low light levels. The cheese plants and the devil's ivy, they can cope with quite low light levels as well. But they like that little bit of humidity. So if you pop those in there, and I've got dracaenas in the bathroom, or just one, and it's one called Lemon and Lime, which I'd wanted for ages and ages, and I finally got it. And in the bathroom at home, we've got black tiling with just a single narrow lime-coloured strand sort of round the edge of it. So black. I love lime. Lime's got it's a colour that's full of positivity and energy.
Yeah.
And green.
There we go. Yeah.
From his shoes. And I like things that have got energy in it. But I also like the contrast with the black. The black brings them out. So I've got this Dracaena with lemon and lime green leaves, so that goes in there as well.
Houseplants always do really well in bathrooms.
A lot of them like the humidity.
Yeah.
You know. And the other thing, another great group of houseplants to grow is Streptocarpus. There is a nursery called Dibley's Nursery in Wales, and they are like super duper with Streptocarpus, and they've been growing them for years. And if you ever go to the RHS shows, or any of the shows where they're at, they've always got these fantastic displays of Streptocarpus. But that's a really good plant for, you know, a windowsill away from scorching sunshine with, you know, moderate light. They come from forests in South Africa, so you can imagine them sort of, again, they're not got the scorching sunshine, but it's a bit of dappled light. And there are varieties now that just flower and flower and flower, and they're really great. But I would say to anybody with any of your plants, because we've focused on house plants, haven't we, really? But if you want to start an allotment, or you want to, you know, if you're wanting to start gardening, then for goodness sake, do it. You know, there's so many people to help you. And if you want to grow your own veg, whether it's on the windowsill with cut and come again, or if you just get some peas and 2 or 3 layers of kitchen towel and put them in an old margarine tub and sprout them just for pea shoots, you know, just have a go. You know, you won't learn anything by thinking about it.
No,
so just give it a go. And the other thing is, you don't have to sort of invest heavily in it either. And I would say to you that if somebody offers you an allotment, you know, think about it, because gardening should always be a pleasure. And, you know, while you're away on holiday, if your work doesn't allow, then the weeds will keep growing. But you think of ways around it, because, you know, in life it's about, you know, facing conundrums and problems and challenges and going, right, what's the way around it? And our supervisor of studies, when I was a student at Kew, he used to say, you must remember, and my family are fed up with hearing me say this, but you must remember that there's not only one way into a house. The most obvious way is through the front door.
Yeah.
And we hope that you will go through the front door of most houses that you go into. But if needs be, you could go around the back door, through the windows on the ground floor, through the first floor, down through the chimney like Santa does. You know, there's lots of ways to get into that place where you want to be. And if you look at and evaluate that place where you want to be, see how realistic it is, you know, because we always want things that are much greater than the space or the time that we've got. So sit and evaluate it, and then you go, do you know what, I could do this, but I could do this with these modifications. I could, you know, have an allotment, but I can't go down there regularly, so I'll either share half with a friend, or, you know, so we can work it that way, and we'll, you know, go 50-50 on the produce. Or perhaps you might go, I'll tell you what, we'll grow a certain number of vegetables, and then put fruit on the rest of it, you know, just to fill the space. So it should always remember that your garden should be a pleasure, you know, not a worry. It's not its job to be a worry.
I spent the first year of gardening weeding, mate, and not a pleasure.
Well, I don't know.
You enjoy it? Yeah, it's all right doing a little bit of weeding.
No, I don't mind it. I think there's. I used to get into trouble with my first job, because when weeding to me was like getting every single weed out, but of course when you're being employed to do it, you can't do that. And I find hand weeding quite therapeutic, because you go through an area, and one of the great things about gardening, as you all know, is that you start at one end and you finish at the other, and you've made an impact. The only downside is that you're going to have to go back and do it again and again and again every time. But you can always, job satisfaction is really high. So the weeding, you know, hand weeding, yes, is slow and laborious, but when you clear an area of weeds, it doesn't half look lovely.
The sense of achievement.
A sense of achievement. And there's there's ways, you know, if you've got a new allotment and you've cleared the perennial weeds out, like, you know, the dandelions and the docks and those that will keep coming back and back and back. So you've been round with a garden fork and you've forked them all out. Then what you can do is either put a layer of mulch over the surface, which is well rotted organic matter, about a good 3 inches, just to, you know, keep the weeds from growing. Any weed seeds that blow in, because it's on really nice loose compost, would be easy to hoe out and pull anyway. Or you can get some old carpet and cover the area with carpet, or cardboard and cover the area. So that area that you've worked on, it doesn't have to return, you know, immediately to the, or, you know, in time to the condition that it was in.
Yeah.
So, and that comes from just learning about gardening and just checking things out. And on an allotment, as I say, everybody will want to give you advice, and it'll all be conflicting. So you just listen to it all and work it out for yourself.
Oh, thanks so much, Matt. Are you right to do a couple of questions?
Yeah.
Has anyone got any questions they want to ask Matt? No one put your hand up, so it always happens, doesn't it, Matt? Here we go. I knew Andrew would.
Thank you, Lee. It's not exactly a question, but it's a comment. Now, you're very well known for a radio broadcast programme on Radio 4 called Gardener's Question Time, and one of your fellow panellists is Bob Flowerdew. And I use the Bob Flowerdew method of weeding. And this is what he described to a talk he gave in Cotford, just outside Colchester a few years ago, and is in his books. It's basically, you start on day 1, you then clear a patch, you then go off to work, come back 3 weeks later. I mean, you don't start on patch 2, you go back and clear patch 1, because then you've cleared it, then you do patch 2, and you gradually keep it clear. And it's worked for me when I've had difficulties in life, like we all do.
Yeah. No, that's great. And going back to, but you have to make sure you obviously when you go back to weed patch 1 again, the seedlings that are on the surface will have germinated. There won't be so many, and little by little you'll whittle them down. And the other thing that you can do, which is what gardeners often do for early season crops, is to get a sheet of polythene, either clear or black. They both work well enough, and then you will get the seeds under that area to germinate. The seeds will germinate, you'll get rid of those, and then you will sow your seeds. I think the other thing that if I may just add to your point, is that when you've cleared those areas, sow something in them. Okay, don't just leave it and keep on going back. The reason why you've got an allotment is to grow veg. So once you've cleared an area, and this is really important, I think, for the psychology of it all. Clear an area and sow something in it. It might just be some cut and come again lettuce. It might be lettuces or carrots. And if you go for early varieties, they will germinate quickly, and you will get your crop if you're waiting for them to reach to maturity. Spring onions, any of the salads, but just get something in there so that while you clear the rest of the allotment and the rest of the area, you're reminding yourself all the time. And of course, you're increasing that productive area. So each time you go down there, you do some digging and you're clearing, you'll cut a lettuce or pull a carrot or, get a bunch of spring onions or whatever you'll do. And you're reminding yourself as exactly why you're doing this and what the reward will be in the long term. And I think that's really, really important, because if you try and clear the whole blooming lot, 27 feet of allotment or whatever it is, by the end of it, you'll be too exhausted to do anything. So you need to feed yourself to give you the energy to clear the rest of the allotment.
Thanks, Matt. Well, look, we're doing Gardener's Question Time later on. What time are we doing that, Matt? 1:30 we're doing Gardener's Question Time. So if you've got any other questions do you want to ask, then come to Gardener's Question Time. Put your hand down. Don't matter. It's okay, cool. So thank you so much, Matt.
Pleasure. Thank
Matt
you.
Biggs, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Cheers. Thanks for listening.